Three bills, one purple community, but does any Republican step to the plate and actually get it done? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoon's LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. This starts every day at 3:30 with a check, then goes to hazard pay, then FPUC, and finally rent assistance. Big, exciting, great news, a little bit of confusing news, and a lot of what the hell news this afternoon. Let's get right to the details. I have for you the second of three stimulus package bills. This one's about FPUC. Earlier today on Morning's LALATE, which thank you for tuning in, I debuted the first stimulus bill, which is to provide checks. And if you don't know what's going on, let me recap. Over a week ago, Mark Meadows, Chief of Staff to the President, and Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary to Donald Trump, said that stimulus checks could go out next week because this is an easy agreement between him and the Democrats, that we can get them done and out in 1 week. We can agree upon what we can agree upon, and we don't need to do all this other stuff. He called for standalone bills. And we certainly isolated the problem, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So on Friday, or Saturday actually, in a call to action, I said, okay, I will step in on behalf of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and on behalf of the Democrats. I'll draft 3 standalone bills. And you can call me up on Monday and we'll negotiate them, get them done, and you could introduce them to the Senate as 3 standalone bills. Let's get it done. You say you can do it as 3 standalone bills. Why haven't you written it? Not a single Republican has written anything that they have talked about. It's been a lot of talk and no production. So I did it for them because apparently computers are not working in the Capitol. There's out of print or out of paper. So here is the exciting news. First, let me recap the one from this morning. Stimulus check bill. Stimulus check would be going out to Americans. The bill actually says, I put in there the language that Treasury, which is Steve Mnuchin, has to send out the checks within 10 days of this passing into law. So I put in there, excuse me, 14 calendar days. So I actually put in there a requirement. It can't be held up for anything. $1,200 for all individuals, which is what both sides agree to. $2,400 to a married couple. Both sides agree to it. And for dependents, I went to $1,200 for dependents because that's what the Democrats propose. I don't think $500 is a really breaking issue. And that is very simple. I put in there, stimulus check shall not be taken out for debts, child support, or past due balances on federal state taxes. And the thresholds for getting checks remains the same. It's under the CARES Act. Someone just tweeted me a minute ago and said, hey, my son makes $100,000. He won't be eligible for a stimulus check. We can do that with step-ups. The Republicans and Democrats both wanted to do that. If you made more than that eligibility quality, you would get a stimulus check, but not the full amount. I don't want to complicate it right now, but I'm not saying that it's not included in the discussion. So that's really great news as well. Here you go. I gave this to Steve Mnuchin and Mark Meadows and tweeted them, Monday morning. Anyone hear anything from the Republicans? Has the Republicans introduced a standalone bill? No. Have the Republicans done any introduction of any legislation? No. When was the last time they introduced something? The HEALS Act nearly 4 weeks ago with Mitch McConnell, a bloated bill, which they say they want to do as standalone bills. Now, let me cut to something that is really bad misinformation. Not only am I dealing with Fox News, bad channels, but someone was dropping in the comments of this channel and was banned, and someone was dropping in comments on Twitter and was also blocked, said that over the weekend the Republicans introduced into Congress their skinny bill and that I've been ignoring it. And the person included a link to the CARES Act in May. Well, good, try a better false story. The 155-page CARES Act from May. Yeah, that's not a Republican skinny bill in August. It actually, the interesting thing about bills is that if you look at page 1, it says the date that they're introduced, and that bill was introduced in March, actually. So try again. Now, let's get to FPUC. Really exciting news about FPUC. Here you go, debuting right now, and I'll debut it later in the FPUC video as well. I do it as in a page and a half. And I basically say, hey, very simple, $450 unemployment benefits. Excuse me, $550 per week unemployment benefits. It says during the period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act, the Department of Treasury says send out to U.S. residents eligible under federal pandemic unemployment compensation, which is what FPUC stands for, payments. Eligibility. Any U.S. resident currently on unemployment or currently on Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, PUA, shall be eligible for FPUC extension with states to determine eligibility. This bill is basically an extension of FPUC. To be enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives on the United States Congress, this act shall be cited as FPUC Extension Act. Very, very simple. This is like 3 paragraphs long. In the amount, in general, the amounts paid to U.S. residents shall be as follows: $550 per week. Section 3, other. In general, this act shall extend FPUC adopted in the CARES Act. And this is really a big issue that a lot of people have asked. There's no disagreement with the Republicans and the Democrats about this, but the news reporting has been very unclear. So let me explain. When FPUC expired in the CARES Act in July, people were wondering, okay, what happens thereafter? So this says it would extend FPUC under the CARES Act. So basically, you would get FPUC uninterrupted. The payment shall be retroactive to the date of expiration of the CARES Act. So when the CARES Act expired, which I think was like late July, you would get benefits back to that date of expiration. You would not lose a week of FPUC. Now you're going to ask about how about LWA? That's provision number 3. States may reduce payments as a result of benefits paid under a lost wage assessment. I'm not going to have a bill make clutter and confusing, but basically I'm saying, hey, states may reduce it by the amount that you got LWA. Very simple. Is if you got $300 this week and this becomes law, then what's 550 versus 300? 250. So you'll get a gap. You'll get that gap money retroactive, 250 for every. So if you got 3 weeks of FPUC, 3 weeks of LWA, you'll get 250 each week. Very, very, very simple. The eviction moratorium is a third stimulus standalone bill that needs to be done. But ironically, guess who could do it without me, without the purple wonder? The president, the big wonder. He can do it by executive order. His inherent authority under the Constitution grants him the ability to do a standalone executive order. That would say, in essence, what I detailed over the weekend. No evictions during this pandemic, no mortgage foreclosures during this pandemic or until the sunset window. Now, the sunset window is something that really kicks in for purposes of the FPUC and the mortgage and rent. Let me explain what a sunset window is. Nancy and Steve never really came to an agreement about when things expire. Nancy was sort of idiotic and just saying January. I mean, what's January, Nancy? Except that's when Santa gets the little letters from the people in the mail from the postman. Yeah, she actually said that. What's January, Nancy? I mean, January is not tied to economically anything. So what I said is, hey, you have to tie it to something economically because Steve Mnuchin's an economist and I'm a finance guy. And so it's like, hey, okay, let's look at what to tie it to. Unemployment numbers. Every Thursday is the unemployment number. So I said we'll tie it to 3 consecutive weeks of unemployment claims at 550,000 or less. If you don't know what my benchmark is, let me explain. Unemployment claims before the pandemic started were 220,000 new unemployment claims per week on a Thursday, as the Chainsaw Massacre comes for me. Offset if you hear that. Then they're currently about 1 million per week. So I said, hey, let's do 550 every week, 550 3 consecutive weeks, and then we will expire these programs. Very simple. And yet what's not so simple or what's not so inherently clear is the silence. The silence. Where is Steve Mnuchin? Where is Mark Meadows? Why aren't they doing these standalone bills? Let me remind you what they said no more than a few days ago. First, I'm going to hammer on the Republicans. Then I'm going to hammer on the Democrats. Meadows, I think we can come to an agreement on stimulus checks to Americans and enhance unemployment benefits. Those are issues not as divisive as we may think. Let's at least pass what we can agree upon. Okay, Mark, I know you're not in the Congress. I know you're a member of the cabinet, but has anyone of your staff written a standalone bill for those? No. Has any Republican written a standalone bill for those? These comments were made, what, a week ago today? We're up to about 7 days. Has any Republican did a standalone bill for stimulus checks? No. Standalone bill for enhanced unemployment benefits? No. A standalone bill for eviction moratorium? No. So I'm doing it for you on behalf of the Democrats. Now, have the Democrats done it? No. Nancy says she won't do it. Chuck Schumer says he won't do it. But other Democrats are irate with Nancy and want it done. But have they done it? No. I mean, we got two entire bodies of Congress, House and Senate, both Republicans and Democrats, everyone's saying they want to do something and no one's doing it. What a bunch of nincompoops. I mean, it's really incredulous. Representative Lou Correa, Democrat serving Anaheim, California, Mickey Mouse land. He says, my job is to keep fighting and make sure that the next package of COVID relief is about to happen. It's frustrating for me to see what unfolds. Okay, that's nice, Captain Obvious. It's frustrating. I'm watching. I'm ensuring. We're watching, too. Have you done anything, Representative? Have you written a bill? No. Then we have the Blue Dogs, 17 House members. Blue Dog Coalition put a letter to Nancy Pelosi last week. Said as the House prepares to vote this weekend on the postal, we urge you to restart negotiations and do something. Did they do anything? No. Derek Kilmer, I loved him in Batman, chairman of the New Democratic Coalition, along with Vice Chair Scott Peters and Joint Economic Committee Vice Chair Don Bayer. 3 different states, Washington, California, Virginia. They represent 113 members of both the House and the Senate who are Democrats, calling for a standalone stimulus package. In their case, they were talking about unemployment benefits and stimulus checks, standalone bill. Did they write it? No. They wrote Nancy on Friday this beautiful letter, 113 of them, God bless them. But have they done anything since? No. So Nancy took the letter and went, I'm not going to toss this off set because I sort of still need this part for this recording. But did she take the letter and just toss it? Yeah. Did she do anything with it? No. So are these people just a bunch of wusses? Are they just a bunch of wimps? I mean, you really got to call them for what they are. They see a problem, they write Nancy a letter, and then they just don't do anything. This is sort of like, when people have problems with Javita Carranza and they bring her in for an SBA hearing, and then she just sort of stonewalls them. Snowballs them. Yeah, that's why the scars, she's called. Stonewalls them. When she stonewalls them. Did they do anything about it? No. They just roll over and, die. I've never seen a bunch of whims. But here we go. Democrats, Republicans, new coalition, Blue Dogs, Mark, Steve, Larry, Pete Navarro, all say they want standalone stimulus check bills. Standalone unemployment benefits, enhanced benefits bills, no. Eviction moratorium, standalone bills, they all say they want it. Has anyone written it? No. So I've done it for you in about 10 minutes twice. Now, I guess 8 minutes and 8 minutes. Okay, I spent 16 minutes of my time. You know how much money we pay them as congressmen and they can't spend 16 minutes of their time to do it and introduce it to the Senate? 24 hours. End of today, Republicans. End of today. Otherwise, I'm calling you out. End of today, I'm calling you out, Steve and Mark Meadows, as a lot of bullcrap because all you did was talk about standalone bills and you didn't do it. Now, I fully understand that you have a convention to attend. That's your excuse for this week. Not to say that you can't have someone just put something in, it's one piece of document, you electronically file it. I mean, you do have internet connection in North Carolina, don't you? But let's turn to some good news. Some good news is my lenders, my students, you have some good news. Ironically, again, it's coming from the president. It's not coming from Nancy. What happened? Well, on August 8th, I haven't covered it, and I know every time I do cover it, you're like, thank God you cover this. So I'm covering it today. August 8th, President Donald Trump signed a memorandum, it was an executive order, ordering Betsy DeVos, my most unfavorite person ever, to extend student loan relief policies under the CARES Act that were scheduled to expire on September 30th through the end of December. What am I talking about? The CARES Act had a lot of stuff that expired. And one of the things that have expired since then, one of the things expired was student loan debt repayment, principal and interest. Every time I cover the see people are like, oh, thank God you cover this, because I don't have an entire video series about this. So I have to slide it in somewhere, and I'm sliding it in here. Well, he thought that needs to be protected. Thank God. Thank you, Mr. President. So he extended it to December. It was set to expire September 30th. So all borrowers, but it's not for all type of loans. So I'm going to explain to you what DeVos did. On Friday, she instituted this and it was announced today. All borrowers with federally held student loans will have their payments automatically suspended until 2021 without penalty. God bless. In addition, the interest rate on all federally held student loans will be set to zero through the end of the calendar year. So you don't have student debts due, and there won't be any interest or principal running during this period, which is just wonderful. How many loans is this and how much money it is? It's not very clear. But, there's criticisms of the president, criticisms of Joe Biden, but that thing worked. It extended student loan repayments. All right, so what else is going on today? Economic news. I didn't get to cover this earlier this morning. I want to really cover it. And this is really always important, and it causes a double-edged sword. First, it's good for you for getting your stimulus checks because there's more reason to send the stimulus checks out. But on the other hand, it's bad for you because it says that the economy is in a bad situation. Let me say what the data is. The new data shows a double-dip recession. There's, debate whether we're in a recession or a depression, but the new indication now suggests that we're in a double dip recession, which means that any benefit we got from the first stimulus round that filtered in through individuals or filtered in through businesses or filtered in through banks has now worn off, and that there's no stimulus driving rebound of this economy, and that with all the other economic forces that are very, very dire, when including housing, jobs, unemployment, homelessness, that without stimulus, we're now in another dip, which means we're going back down. We're getting into a worse economic environment than we were a month to 2 months ago. What's very important to understand about this, and this is where I always try to empower you so you know information, you understand it very simple, is that when you're a lawmaker and you're in the Congress and you're a Republican or a Democrat, you try to determine whether to argue for things based upon economic data. But the problem, and this is the most important thing, the problem is that the economic data is often delayed. So in August, we're looking at data from July. Why is this important? Because in July, when they were negotiating, Steve and Nancy and everyone else talking about second stimulus, they were looking at June economic data, which actually was slightly rebounding. Remember double dip, you go up, you go down, and then you go up and you go down again. We weren't dipping in June. We were improving. The economy was improving in June. By July, the economy is now dipping down into a second round of the recession. That data is out now. So for purposes of negotiations, it's not fruitful for the Republicans at this point to say that the economy is robust. It's not. It's not prudent to say that the economy has rebounded. It hasn't. We're double dipping. And all the other economic factors out there currently are the following. An evaporation of GDP, the gross national product of this country. Rental evictions at the highest rate since recorded history, since the Great Depression. 40 million Americans. Some states have eviction rates of 3/4 of their entire population. There's data that says 50, 60, 80% of people that make $40,000 or less per year are in eviction. There's a whole other report which I didn't bring on set, which talked about that landlords now are literally unable to make their bills because they have not seen rent for 6-8 months. Everyone is getting impacted. So, the urgency of stimulus relief now is even more apparent, and that's what's very good news. The bad news, and this is where you turn it to good news, is that today the president spoke, today Nancy spoke, today other Republicans spoke. Did they talk about stimulus? No. Did they talk about stimulus checks? No. Did they talk about unemployment benefits? No. Did anyone meet to negotiate anything? No. We're sitting here, on the next to last week of August. No one's talking about stimulus on a Monday morning. No one is meeting to negotiate on stimulus, and no one has any inherent inclination of when they're going to get to it. But you and I are changing that. So continue the social media campaign. Hashtag LALATE, hashtag write the bill. Even if we end by the end of the day and no single Republican has even picked up a pen and paper, it's not time for you to stop, because ultimately Democrats and Republicans are on notice. You're going to be voted out. If you're in the House or your Senate, you're going to be voted out because you were given the opportunity to do standalone bills this month and next month, and you did nothing. And all you did is that Representative Lo Correa says, it's been frustrating for me to watch this unfold. We don't pay you to watch. We pay you to work. Go to the French channel, hit that subscribe and alert button. The goal last Saturday, as I said, was to really help us grow. You know, we reached 200,000 subscribers in the first 111 days, which no one has ever heard of in the history of YouTube. It's an all-time record. 200,000 subscribers about 111 days. Our goal now is, wow, I said let's set a goal of 25,000 more subscribers in 2 weeks. That was Saturday. Guess where we are now? We're like 212. So we're like halfway there in 2 days. But let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's prove the purple power and prove that it's not a bipartisan. It's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democratic thing. It's a work thing. Get your at work, Congress, and start doing things for Americans' public. Because as Americans, we're on you, and we're going to ensure that you get work done, or we're going to make sure that you're gone. Coming up next is Afternoons LALATE, is hazard pay, and then FPUC, and then rent assistance. As always, stay informed, which you are. Stay motivated, stay positive, stay focused. Keep it positive, and stay with LA for more.